Okay, greetings, everybody. I hope that you are well caffeinated and ready to run through this. This one's going to be a little bit different than most of the ones that I've done for you. I've got slides for you. We're going to run through those pretty quick. I've got screenshots and everything. And then I'm actually going to migrate a website to SiteGround Live. Now, a couple people have been asking questions in the questions thing. I just want to clarify a couple of things. Migrating a website is all about changing the host of the website. It is not about changing your registrar. If you're going to change your registrar, if you're going from Network Solutions to Hover, which is my favorite one, then do that and let that settle for a week or more before you try to migrate your website. Okay, you don't need to be trying to do both of these at the same time. I have been going through the process of consolidating all my websites on with Hover as my registrar, just because I've had them spread all over the place. I mean, I still had one with Network Solutions because back in the day when I started doing websites, that was the only option you had. So, but if you're going to change registrars, do that first. Hillary says she's getting a terrible echo. I apologize. It's not coming over my speakers because I've got my earplugs in. So, okay. As they said, please make sure if you're going to ask questions, I see people already are, use the ask questions because now that I see that everything is working now, I'm going to minimize the window so that because the chat is just distracting to me, as you can see from me already starting to hem and haw. Okay, so let's kick this in. My name's Cal Evans. I've been doing websites since I registered my first domain in 1996. I've been building websites since then. Since 1999, I've been using PHP and MySQL for almost all of them. Did a short stint in using Java and Oracle, but my therapist says I don't have to talk about those days anymore. So without further ado, let's talk about migrating your website. Now, I can remember when migrating WordPress from one server to another used to be a huge deal, okay? And I would spend hours getting files in the right place and permissions set and the database moved and everything just right. And then we would do the cutover and just, hope and pray, okay? These days, it is so much easier. What I'm going to show you is the SiteGround Migrator plugin. But I'm going to talk about the steps that are necessary. So if you're not moving to SiteGround, if you're doing this, if you're moving to another web host, the principles that I discuss will still be very important to you. But I'm going to show you how to do it using the SiteGround Migrator plugin because it's just so dang easy. I'm actually in the process of moving almost all my websites over to SiteGround. I have a server that I manage myself that I've had most of my stuff on. I'm in the process of moving almost everything over to SiteGround just because it's more solid, more reliable, and I don't have to worry about it. And I'd run this process like 5 times because I have 10 or 12 WordPress sites. I'd run it 5 times when they contacted me and said, hey, we want you to do a webinar on moving or migrating websites. I'm like, boy, that is timely. So a lot of what I'm going to tell you is based on the fact that I did it wrong and I want you to do it right. Because of the 5 that I have moved, 2 have gone beautifully, okay? The other ones I've messed up the timing or done something out of order and it always screws up. Only one of them has the Migrator plugin actually had a problem, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. So before you start, this is very important, okay? First, you should have a plan, okay? This is not something that you wake up Saturday morning, get you a cup of coffee and say, my God, this looks like a beautiful day to migrate a website. Don't do that. Plan it out. You want to figure out, maybe Saturday morning is the best time because that's your low traffic time, but you want to have a written plan of what you want to do before you start all this. And here are the things you need to do. Back up everything and make sure that you have all your backups down locally on your computer, okay? So if your current host gives you a backup process, then let them back everything up and then go ahead and download them so that you've got that copy local. So if anything goes wrong, you've got everything there on your machine. So I'm talking about your database, all your files, and email accounts. Now, I'm not going to talk about migrating email in this webinar because this is about migrating a website. But if you are going to be changing email services, then you're going to want to make sure that you back up all of your email accounts. Later on, I'll give you a link to a tutorial that SiteGround wrote that is all about exactly how to do this, what tools to use to make this migration work, and it's actually pretty easy. But if you're like me and my primary domain, calevans.com, uses Google or Gmail for my email. So, even if I migrate the site, and I'll be migrating the site next week, my email won't change. And my email hosting provider will still stay at Google. But if you're migrating everything, or before you start migrating, back up everything, then make sure that you log in to your registrar. In my case, that's Hover. In your case, that might be GoDaddy. That might be NetSol. That actually might be SiteGround, if SiteGround is your registrar, because they do act as a registrar. But make sure you can log in to your registrar. And then also go ahead and log in to your SiteGround control panel. Or if you're migrating to another web host, go ahead and migrate or log in to the web host's control panel. This just is a get it out of the way in advance. This way I know I've got passwords. I know I have access. Nothing's locking me out or blocking me. Worst thing in the world is I get ready to do this. I've got everything backed up. I'm ready to push the button, and I have forgotten my registrar's password or something like that. So let's go ahead and log in and everything, get it all out of the way now. Then we want to install the Migrator plugin. Now, don't worry if I flip through these slides real quick, okay? Because like I said, I'm going to do one of these live for you when we finish this. But I want to show you the steps before we do it. So we log in and we install the plugin, and you'll know that it's installed when you go to the settings on the left-hand side. You'll see the SiteGround Migrator. You click that, and it'll bring this up. So install it and activate it. Then we got to create our new home. Now on SiteGround, that's pretty dang easy. We're going to create the new website. Then we're going to select migrate to the existing website, and we're going to tell it automatically do it. If you're migrating to another web host, then you might have to do these differently, but the SiteGround control panel makes this pretty easy. We're going to click the button. There's a big orange button up here. It says new website, and this can bring up this. And I'm going to tell it that we're going to take an existing domain. We already own this domain. New domain will take us to the SiteGround registrar process and allow us to register a new domain. We already have an existing domain. Temporary domain is not for migrating, but anytime I am playing around with a new idea and I just want to play with something, I click that. It gives me a brand new website that I can then play with and don't feel bad when I destroy it in a week or so. But we're going to click existing domain. And then we're going to tell it that we're going to migrate a website. We're going to click that, and that assumes we've got the plugin already installed. Oop, I had that on there twice. Now, we're going to migrate a website. Now, we have two options here, and I saw somebody in the questions had stated that they had a problem with the migration plugin. I've only had one problem with the migration plugin, and that was on a fairly complex site. And I was able to overcome it and still use the plugin. But if you aren't comfortable with that, you can request a manual transfer by the team, and they will schedule a time for you to do that. You can also pay for faster service if it's time sensitive, but you want somebody. I say this a lot because I know these webinars are focused on talking to non-technical site owners, but if you are at all worried, bring somebody on to help you with this, okay? This process for the average website is going to take less than an hour. It's going to take us a lot less than an hour. And if you're uncomfortable, hire a developer for an hour to say, hey, I just want you to take care of this for me. If you're not sure who, SiteGround will recommend somebody to you. You can get the team. I prefer bringing somebody that works for me on when I'm doing stuff like this. That way I know, who they're answering to. But we're going to talk about this super fast WordPress automation or auto migration. So we're going to click that button. And it's going to bring up this. Once it's finished, it's going to install WordPress and get everything up and running. And then it's going to bring up this site. Now, this site or this page is real important because it's got two very important pieces of information. Number one is our migration token. We're going to click copy there. That's going to copy it to our clipboard because we're going to need that. Number two is our domain names. These are our domain name servers. I told you had to log into your registrar. Your registrar is where you control your domain name servers. Now, it's gotten a lot easier in the past 2 weeks because SiteGround has moved to a distributed DNS. Used to be they gave you 2 unique domain name servers, and they had just a host of them all around the world, and they gave you the ones closest to where your site's going to be hosted, and you had to remember those. Now it's just ns1 nameserver1.siteground.com and ns2 or siteground.net and ns2.siteground.net. So no matter where your website is, you use those, and their system in the background figures out which name servers are actually handling it. It's a beautiful system. Once we get through that, we are going to push the button. Okay, I don't know if any of y'all are fans of the old TV show Mystery Science Theater 3000, but they closed every episode with "Push the button, Frank." Well, we're going to push the button, Frank. We are going to come over here. We're going to paste our migration token in. Don't bother copying that one. It's not valid. And we're going to click Initiate the transfer. And for big sites, it's going to email us when it's done. Now, for small sites, I just let it run, and it tells me when it's done. But for the larger sites, it'll actually email me. The sites that I've been moving have had less than 100 posts. When I get ready to move my personal blog, blog.calevans.com, that's got, last time I checked, that had 700 posts, 650 posts, somewhere in that neighborhood. So that's going to be a big one. And it's got a lot of images, and that's going to take a long time to migrate. So that's one of those, I'll start it running. I'll wait for it to email me. I'll go on and do other things. We're going to enter the code, but what if things go wrong? Well, like I said, I have had one of them that went wrong, and things there went really wrong. So I'm going to tell you what it does. The one problem that I've run into in this is when the Migrator plugin is running on your current website, if it runs out of memory, then it can't finish compressing everything because it's got to compress everything and build one big compressed file to transfer over to SiteGround. And if it runs out of memory, then it can't do that. The great thing is it tells you, put this line in your WP config file. And most of us understand how to use WordPress, and WordPress has the edit file capability, and you can edit your WP config, and you can paste that line right in, and it will upgrade. In most cases, it will upgrade your the amount of memory that PHP has to work with, and that's what's problem. That's the problem we're hitting, is PHP's running out of memory to build the compressed file. Then you run it again. Now, if it still runs out of memory, at that point, you're going to have to contact support for your at your current web host and ask them to upgrade it, because there's only so much you can do as with your WP config file. After that, it has to be done at the server level, and most people don't have access to edit those type of files. Even with the WordPress file editor, you can't get to your host config files and stuff like that. Most web hosts, unless you're leaving under bad terms, most web hosts have no problem in doing this. The one time that things went really wrong was I tried to do that, and then I started to go again, and it told me, oh, your token is invalid. Okay, well, it wouldn't give me a new token, so what I had to do was delete on SiteGround. I had to delete the website that I had just created and then try to create it again. Well, there's a problem with that. When you delete a site from SiteGround, the first thing it does is take it out of your list and mark it as inactive. Then a process later on, sometime within the next hour, will go through and actually delete it and get it out of the system. Until that process runs, you can't try again with that same domain name. So if I was doing the website for my wife, the lovely and talented Kathy, and her website, one of her websites, the one I was moving, was kathyevans.biz, and it errored out, so I fixed the error, and then I got the invalid code, so I deleted it from SiteGround and immediately tried to recreate kathyevans.biz, and it said, nope, sorry, we see that one as already being used. But it tells you, if you've just deleted this, wait an hour. Doesn't actually take an hour. It actually took me about 15 minutes, but they give themselves an hour just to make sure. So then I just, once it cleared, I went back in, I tried it again, I got the code, I pasted it back in the Migrator, everything worked fine, okay? In reality, if anything else goes wrong, you're gonna need support, and most of the time you're gonna need support from your current web host. SiteGround cannot help you with your current web host. There's very little they can do. If you contract with them to migrate your site on a difficult one, they can go in and manually dump the database and manually FTP the files or SFTP the files over and get everything set up like that, but that takes a lot longer to do. Okay. So, assuming everything went fine, it finished, we're done. Well, what do we do now? Well, now that's where the name servers kick in. This is the hover dialog box that pops up, and I'm going to show you this in just a minute. And we edit our name servers, and we only have 2. Some places have more than 2. Matter of fact, the one I was coming from had 3, so I had to delete one. But we put in ns1.siteground.net, ns2.siteground.net. We click Save Name Servers. Then, and I cannot stress how important this next step is, wait, okay? Some places will see the change immediately. Other places will see it within the next 10 to 15 minutes. Chances are real good that you won't see the change happen on your machine for 4 to 8 hours. That's about how long it takes for most desktops to invalidate their DNS cache and go ask again. See, when you type in a domain name, like I use DuckDuckGo as my search engine. Well, when I type in DuckDuckGo, the first thing my browser does is ask the operating system, do we already know this one? And is it current? And since I go to DuckDuckGo a lot, it says, oh yeah, I know where we're going for this. Here's the address you need to go to. And it's real fast and it goes right there. If it's been more than 4 hours, then on average, then my operating system will say, I think I know it, but let me just double check. And it'll start talking to the global domain name system, and it will ask, hey, what's the IP address for DuckDuckGo.com? Oh, okay, yeah, I got that. And then it'll hand it back to the browser. And that's how this whole thing happens. Well, you've got to wait for those caches to invalidate. Now, there are some services out on the web that you can use that ignore cached values and always go out and look directly for the new value. And if you are using one of those, then it'll see the change immediately. But chances are real good that you're just going to have to sit and wait until the change happens. Okay, now that you've waited, and now you can bring it up in a browser and see the new site. Oh, let me give you this one tip. If you're using Firefox as your browser, Firefox has what they call the HTTP DNS resolver. So if you have that turned on, then it's going to use its internal DNS. It's going to bypass your operating system, and that's going to see that change a lot faster. So I usually use Chrome to do all my work. But as soon as I've made the migration, I will bring the site up in Firefox and log in and see that it is, and it's usually I'm seeing the new one because it's not using my operating system's DNS cache. You'll know you're seeing the new one if you're migrating to SiteGround, because it will not migrate the Migrator plugin. So if you log in and look at the admin panel and you don't see the Migrator plugin, you're looking at the new one. Post-migration, what do we do? Well, of course, we set up HTTPS because nobody wants to run an insecure website. I still run into that every now and then. I don't understand. With the fact that Let's Encrypt will do it for free, and especially on SiteGround, it's a couple button clicks and boom, you're done. There's really no sense not having it. Google rewards you for it, or actually they penalize you if you don't have it. So it's just a good idea to go ahead and make sure you have HTTP set up. Then install the SiteGround Optimizer plugin. Now that you're on SiteGround, let's take advantage of it. And you turn on things like memcached and minification and the image optimization. Turn on all those options. We'll go through all those. And then if you're migrating your email addresses, this is the time where you set up the email accounts. Now, because DNS probably hasn't propagated yet fully, you may not be able to send and receive emails from the new accounts, but you want to set them up and make sure that they're there. And if you're importing email, you can go ahead and do the import at this point as well. If you're importing what you exported, you can go ahead and import as well. To install the new SSL, this is my daughter's website. Seriously, you just click there. For select SSL, I say let's encrypt. For most part, these days, I don't know of anybody that doesn't honor let's encrypt. So you click the get button and it will set it up. And then you come over there, the next option down in security on your control panel is enforce. And go ahead here and click HTTPS enforce. This does a couple of things. This puts a rewrite rule in your configuration, your server configuration. So if somebody tries to come to just HTTP, it automatically redirects them to HTTPS. But it also makes an update to WordPress to make sure that your URLs in WordPress in the settings have HTTPS. You want to turn on memcached. Okay, if you are coming from your own hosted solution, you might not have had this available to you, but this will make a significant difference in how WordPress operates. It stores a lot of things in memory using a system called memcached. So you want to turn that on, and you want to in the SG Optimizer plugin, you want to turn on memcached as well, because we turn it on the server, but we also have to tell the site use memcached. We want to enable HTTPS, but we also want to fix content. Okay, if you're coming from a site where you did not have or did not always have a secure certificate, if you click that button right there, it's going to go through and look at every URL stored in the system that is your domain name and make sure that it starts with HTTPS. So if like my blog.calevans.com has been a WordPress site since 2005, and I'm absolutely positive that there's still some insecure links in there, things like that. This will fix all of that and make your site just a little bit faster. I'm going to talk you through all of these, but we want to minify almost everything. I never minify the HTML output. Okay, that's a personal thing. I have found that to cause more problems than it's worth, so I never minify that. But I minify and combine the JavaScript and the CSS. And all minify does is neither JavaScript nor CSS rely on spaces. So it sucks all the spaces and carriage returns out, makes it absolutely as small as possible. And then just combines them all so that you're only making one request instead of making, I don't know if you've ever viewed source on a WordPress page, but you can, it's very easy to get to the point where you're requesting 12, 13 different JavaScript and CSS files, and that slows your site down a little bit. I also turn on the media optimization. Okay, this will optimize my images to make them as small as possible while still being as clear as possible. I turn on the new image optimization, but I also turn on an existing image optimization. So that will run, this right here will tell you I'm working on image X of Y. And then once you finished it all, this one again was from my daughter's website, and she only has about 20 images on her website. It will bring that up and tell you it's done them all. My personal blog probably has 200 or 300 images by this point, so that's going to take a while for that to run. I generally do not worry with WebP right now. Okay, I don't generate new copies of new images. I don't do for existing images. That might come in the future, but currently that's not what I do. If you get everything else running and you want to try that, fine. That may actually speed things up a little bit. And I usually do not lazy load my media. What's all this do? Well, it gives me A's across the board, except for the F on security. Don't worry about that. That's a whole nother webinar on how to get that up to an A. But look, my time to first byte, the time it takes for everything to negotiate and the browser to get back that very first byte, okay? Everything on down the line, including effective use of a CDN, is all A's across the board. I am what we call clean and green. By the way, if you've never run this on your website, go to webpagetest.org. I have it bookmarked. I have had it bookmarked since Web Page Test came out. It is by far the most comprehensive tool for looking at your website and telling you if there are any issues, any speed issues. It'll even do things like Google's dynamic shift score and all of that. So it really gives you a good picture of what how your website looks. And since I'm in Florida, I usually run it from California. But you have the option of picking where you want to run it from and what browser you want to be used as the test. And if you want the Google dynamic shift score, you've got to use a Chrome-based browser. So we've done all of that. Then we set up our email addresses. Now, remember I told you I'd give you a link to a tutorial. SiteGround has a tutorial called Transfer Emails Using IMAP Size. IMAP Size is a free tool that you use, and it basically sucks all the emails out of your current system, and then once you have changed your DNS and set up the account, it blows them all back into the new system. It's real easy, and I think you'll find the tutorial very easy to work with. Like I said, it's beyond the scope of this tutorial or this webinar to talk about email accounts. Okay, I know this is what you've been waiting for. This is the opportunity to see Cal fall flat on his face. Let's see. I think I need to. Let me bring this back up. Oh, people are asking questions. Good. Okay. There we go. Close the video. Now let's share the other screen. Get that out of the way. Okay. Oh, yeah. Y'all don't want to see my Slack either. Okay, so this is the website that we're going to migrate, KathyREvans.com. We're going to migrate that up. So the first thing we do is install the plugin. Okay. You notice I've already got the SG security plugin installed. That is, now this is my wife's site, so I didn't technically do everything I normally do, but there are two plugins that I always install. The first one is always Yoast. I always get Yoast installed. The second one is SiteGround Security. But we're going to install the Migrator, and we're going to activate the Migrator. Now, we got the Migrator down here. That's all we're going to do right here at the moment. Then we're going to come over here. You know what? I'm a big fan of copy and paste. I'm going to come over to my SiteGround account, and we're going to add a new website. Please maximize my screen. Is that better? Okay. We're going to do an existing domain, and it's KathyREvans.com. By the way, she's given me permission to do this. I don't just randomly yank her website out from under her at different times. So she's given me her permission. Now, SiteGround does not control the registrar, or SiteGround is not my registrar for this domain name. So it's just telling me, hey, you need to know you're going to have to change the domain name servers yourself. I get that. So I'm going to click continue. We're going to migrate an existing site. We're going to select the auto migration. And for this particular one, I'm not yet ready to get Site Scanner, although I was writing a I was writing a script for a video that I'm doing for SiteGround, and I mentioned the fact that their malware Site Scanner is one of the best of them out there, and it's 18 euro per year, which is pretty good deal when you're comparing it to some of the other ones. But we're not going to do it for this one. Oh, good. The maximization worked. Okay. And we're just we got to sit there and wait. There's a lot of waiting on this. Okay. Remember I told you we're going to get to this point. WordPress is actually set up now. It's ready to go. Now we need to do the transfer. So I'm going to copy that. That copies it to our clipboard. I'm going to come over here. We do this, and I'm going to correct a typo. Okay, and I'm going to initiate the transfer, and then we're going to watch, because this is going to be just fascinating. It is dumping the database. It is compressing all the files, the non-core WordPress files. It's getting all the plugins and everything, compressing all of those up. Of course, it does not compress WordPress itself, because WordPress is already installed, but it does pull all the plugins. So it's not unusual for my sites to have custom plugins, things like that. It will pull all of those over. And it is downloading, and this is going famously. Now, one of the problems I had was I figured, hey, at this point, I can go do whatever. And one of the things what I thought of was, hey, why don't I go ahead and change the domain name servers, because it takes a while for that to take place. Don't do this. Take the steps in order and be patient, okay? That was one of the ones that did not go smoothly. I ended up having to change them back and then wait till the next day and start the process over again. In case you've not figured it out, I'm just vamping until this thing changes. So, somebody mentioned Joomla. I love Joomla. The other way to do this is the way we used to do it, which is you use SFTP to download everything to your machine, your local machine, and then use SFTP to download or to upload them to your new site. You can do that. Perfectly acceptable solution, but that's a manual solution. It takes a lot more work, because then you've also got to export your database and import your database and make sure everything is working all on your own, whereas the migration plugin basically does all of those for you. Okay, it's done. Now, like I said, hers isn't a big site, so we didn't have to wait that long. Again, it tells us to upgrade or update our DNS, okay? We can actually go to the site. Let's see. Betting that this is the old site, and I know it is because it's still got SG Migrator. So we're not seeing the new site, even though it says we can. But we need to change our name servers, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. And I have logged in here to my registrar already. And I'm going to change that. And I'm going to change that. And I'm going to get rid of that one. NS1 and NS2.SiteGround.net. It puts check marks by it. That means that it has looked, and both of those exist, and they're registered as name servers. I apologize. Film Artiste, that's the name on there. I apologize for that if I butchered that. Yes, we're not talking about email, but the time to download them is before you start any of this, okay? And you're just going to have to accept that from the time you download until the time you upload and your DNS is transferred, there might be emails that get lost. It's going to happen. Some are still going to go to the old server, but you've already exported them, so you won't see them. Some will go to the new server once everything's set up. You just need to know that that's going to be a real issue for about 4 to 8 hours. Okay, they say 24 hours, 4 to 8 in reality these days. It used to be, seriously, it took us 24 to 48 hours to propagate domain name changes like this. We have made a DNS change at this point. Okay. Because I used to control the old DNS server and I had it set up a very specific way. And now SiteGround is handling the new DNS for her website. Now I've done all of that. So let's go into my control panel for Kathy R. Evans. I'm going to go into Site Tools. Dak, if email is on Google, then I tell you what, I'll tell you this right now. Domain DNS zone editor, you'll pull the DNS zone editor up, you'll delete these MX records, and you will refer to Google's documentation for the proper MX records. That's really all you've got to do, okay? It's not that terribly difficult. Okay, so I've got my site up. Let's go ahead and get her a secure certificate. I used to have scripts that did all of this. I mean, I would say build, I think it was build WordPress.sh, and I would give it a domain name and it would take care of all of this for me. Updating your URL structure. Derek, I don't know how technical you are. I can say that's a fairly technical thing that has to be done because you're going to have to sweep your database at that point. And if you're familiar with it, use the WP CLI search replace command, and you can make that change pretty easily. If you're not comfortable with doing that, then go ahead and hire somebody that understands WordPress. Not just any developer. You need a developer that understands WordPress and can help you with that. Boy, it is still being processed. There we go. Okay. Now we're going to go over here to HTTPS enforce, and we're going to enforce it. Okay. Oh, Catherine. Okay. Did not realize that. I would be hesitant to try to use a plugin because if you're changing your domain name structure from like localhost site name to site name, then it's not going to work until you've actually made these changes. And there's a couple ways you can do that. One of them is editing the HTTP or the WP config file and then visiting the page. The other involves the WP CLI command. So I do apologize for all the Slack notifications that keep popping up. Okay, so now you can't go to Kathy, or once the DNS propagates, you won't be able to go to Kathy R. Evans. You have to go to HTTPS, Kathy R. Evans. And then I do know that she wants Kathy, and she wants that going to, and none of this is private info. Oh, no, that's an autoresponder. Sorry. I want a forwarder. Yeah. She wants Kathy set up to forward to. None of this is private information. Her email address, Kathy@EICC, has been on the internet 20 years now, 18 years, something like that. So, but in her case, and this might be your case, I have a bunch of different websites. I don't want to have to check email on every one of them. So other than my primary domain, calevans.com, I do not set up email addresses anywhere. I set up forwarders, okay? And everything forwards back to cal@calevans.com, just like I set up hers. And they SiteGround automatically puts a forwarder on there that the default forwarder, anything that you don't already have an address or a forwarder set up for is automatically just discarded, okay? Because people send random to random email addresses at domains just to see if they exist. You don't want all that stuff cluttering up your email. So, okay, let's go speed. Where'd speed go? Speed. There we go. We're going to turn on caching. We want to turn on memcached here. Now, the one thing I can't do is, because the DNS is not propagated, I cannot take you to the site and show you on her site, but I showed you the slides, and you can review this on the YouTube channel. It'll be up by tomorrow, and you can see the screens where they're available. But you're going to want to go into the SG Optimize. You're going to install, well, it is installed for you when you install a website on SiteGround, but you're going to want to go in and turn on the minification and the image compression and things like that, and make sure you turn on the memcached like we just did here. We turned it on for the server. We have to go in and turn it on for the website. These will make tremendous differences in your in the speed of your website. Okay, I believe that is all we had. So let's get rid of that, and let's move this over here. I only have 2 screens, so I have to keep moving things around. Share. Okay, and that was demo time, and it literally is that easy. If you follow the instructions, it doesn't take very long to migrate a site. It doesn't take much work to migrate a site. It is, I usually figure it takes 24 hours for everything to happen. So when I was migrating sites, I'd migrate 2 of them, and then the next morning I would get up and I would migrate 2 more, and then I would finish up the work on the first 2, and I'd just keep going. And you can, if you've got a bunch of sites, you can change that number 2 to whatever. There's no magic to it. It's just I didn't want to deal with more than 2 sites in process at any given time. But that's all it takes. Now, you can take your WordPress site, and if you're using the Migrator, you can migrate up to SiteGround. If you are not coming over to SiteGround, you can use SFTP to transfer all your plugins, your themes, and everything in the WP content directory over to your new site. And then you can import your database or export your database off the current one, import it into the new one. And then once DNS propagates, you will be up and running. There's a few more steps to it. Last time I had to do a manual migration. It was a fairly big site. It took me about an hour to move everything over. But once I moved it over, the rest of it was just the same thing as usual. So you can do all of that. Okay, with that having been said, I'm going to turn it back over now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I do apologize for going a couple minutes over. I hope you found this to be useful. And hey, if you want to review this before you do your video, don't forget it will be on the YouTube channel. You can click right there and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way you never miss my smiling face every month doing this. Thank you so much.